I was Delhi yesterday having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and he said, I used to think that sustainability is something which is going to, become fashionable in India by 2030. Right? And yesterday he said I was wrong. This is something which is absolutely here and now. So what I have is a couple of slides which talks a little bit about, what exactly is sustainability, why is it becoming important, what are companies doing about it, what is that whole element of employee engagement as linked to sustainability, and how that is something that's going to really get long-term benefits. I think the first, big thing, that we go around the market and we speak to various customers, we look at our own organization as well, our own funds and where they're putting in money. Is there's a lot of movement between companies like ours being, let's say, just being service provider towards actually future-proofing our customers, right? So let's say a couple of years ago, when we would have conversations with our customers, the only conversation was, can you give me people? I need 20 people of this skill. I need 30 people of that skill. I need them in the zone. Here's what you pay. Here's what you pay. The conversation has just shifted dramatically, right? And now people are talking about how do they make their facilities more and more future facility ready, in which obviously what they call is cleaner buildings, more buildings, better managed buildings, digitization, energy efficiency, and all this linking up into sustainability. Why is this becoming something big, right? So when we as a company look at future facility ready, we really look at three elements: trained workforce, digitization, and sustainability. And I will touch upon sustainability at this point in time. Fundamentally, as a country, right, what exists today is just probably 30% of what will exist, let's say by 2030, which means that the building stock, the industrial stock, the infrastructure stock is just going to skyrocket. But from a resource availability standpoint, we're going to have a degradation of resource availability in terms of its availability and in terms of its cost by almost about 40%. So effectively, unless you move the element of facility optimization through sustainability as a macro approach, you are not going to a situation where you are going to be competitive relative to other peers in terms of delivering tremendous value to customers, tremendous value to your investors. I always keep telling people that the next pandemic is not going to be a bug, but the next pandemic is really going to be how the world actually I would say continues on its good trajectory, potentially by using 50 to 60% lesser resources than it is today. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest megatrends that's really going to shape not only the global scenario but the Indian scenario as well. The moment you look at sustainability, right, and its alignment to the ESG criteria, it attracts a lot more funding for asset owners to fuel growth. Fundamentally, from an asset owner standpoint, you do get a situation where you have a lowest total cost of ownership over the life cycle, which means we get day customers, you get better yields, you get better stickiness. There is obviously continuous improvement for the asset owner through constant reduction in cost, through sustainability initiatives, mechanization, automation, and so on. And even from the user perspective, right, you are basically going to be having lowered energy costs, as an example. You're going to have far better service quality conditions, let's say the managed conditions, real-time monitoring, real-time feedback, real-time control. And eventually you're going to be at a stage where it has a direct alignment to the corporate real estate strategy. It really helps the real estate costs, really be fixed costs. So when we sort of sustainability, it's not something which is just a nice to have or to have, but there are tangible business benefits, and you are ending up in a situation where you are unlocking a tremendous value across the entire value chain. Now, if you look at the typical map of let's say most of the people who undertake a particular journey, most of the clients are typically still at a very, very base level, moving on what we call the emerging level. The emphasis is still largely on equipment, it's on automation, it's on process efficiency, and it's on input cost arbitrage. So for example, for a lot of example, sustainability is, let's say, all about changing, for argument's sake, let's say getting a more efficient chip. It could be about, let's say, changing from furnace oil to electricity for hot water processes. It could be around, say, putting DDC control systems in order to eliminate people. But all still has to do a lot with the equipment automation and the process efficiency and the input cost arbitrage. There is an element which very few people are really looking at. And the fact of the matter is that all of these projects take 7, 10, 15, 20 years to get delivered. And the people who really make it deliver on the ground, the employees working in the facility. So while most people talk about the typical buckets, which is, say, going from basic personnel, digitization, towards doing flow, let's say energy performance contracts as an example, or let's say switching to EV as an example. Behavior is something which is really, starting to catch on in terms of how to make employees a part of this particular journey, and what can corporates do in order to make employees a part of this journey, and therefore link employee actions directly to sustainability. So we've sort of figured this out as a company at 3 levels from a buckets perspective. The biggest one is really about communication. Fundamentally, this is a management commitment, and not just at a C level, but all the way down to most of the employees and most of the suppliers. This is not something which is going to remain a buzzword in the boardroom. It is something that needs to be fundamentally practiced from a top to a bottom perspective. The second key point that we have seen as best practices is around green office practice visibility and assurance, which is really about communication of the strategic importance. I think a lot of people understand that, these things need to be done. They're nice to be done. They're good for the environment. But there is that whole element of strategic linkage from a firm performance perspective. And I think that is something that needs to get translated down to, let's say, the janitor who's using cleaning chemicals and how his activity has an impact on the sustainability goals of the company. The third part of it is employee motivation and reward system. So we have seen organizations that actually make employees a part of the journey, motivate them, praise them, reward them. The fourth one is around promoting feedback, which is on the implementation dynamics. In a lot of companies, we do actually see measures being taken, but very little feedback in terms of how it's actually working and how that feedback is getting dovetailed towards enhancing the performance of the sustainability goals. The next point is around training to tackle issues both professionally and efficiently, because if you look at the word sustainability, energy, environment, and you look at making, let's say, an average employee the part of the journey, you do need to have the element of building expertise on complex issues within the firm, while at the same time integrating employee touch points. So no matter what your role is within the organization, you are contributing towards a sustainability goal. The second list that we really talked about was around promoting sustainable consumption. And this fundamentally links to very, very basic stuff. For example, sustainable purchasing, having an overwhelming emphasis on prioritizing products and services that are linked to sustainability. Basic stuff like, let's say, paper-free offices, eradication of everything that is single use and short use, the traditional energy and water saving initiatives, which is the most prominent one of this list. Green upgrades, for example, over the next couple of years, or 85% of the building stock is still going to be standing and it's going to need a lot of upgradations. How do we align that to local conditions, align that to sustainability, refurbish to reuse, think about long-term durability, and have an orientation towards fixing things versus replacing things. And waste management, which is really around clear and approved waste management processes, routine development in employees, and the feedback mechanism. The last thing that we have on the list is really around the aspect of health and wellness. And I do know we've got some very exciting products on this, which we'll be talking about today. A reduction of the volatile organic compounds by switching to low-emitting VOC products. Cleaning, right? Minimization of, let's say, the harsh solvent-based cleaners that we have, selecting green, eco-friendly, non-hazardous, biodegradable substitutes that provide a healthy environment for employees. Reduction in maintenance efforts, right? A lot of organizations focus on aesthetics, but in effect end up taking difficult to maintain materials and systems, which actually lead to higher usage of, let's say, chemicals, people, equipment, which is more environmental degradation. So how do we put in more and more things that needs less and less maintenance? And a fun thing at the end of the day, right, in terms of nature back in the office, how do we have aesthetics that actually blend in natural and nature-inspired places as part of the offices in terms of, let's say, greenery, plants, healthy airflow, and so on and so forth. So what we're starting to see is that, while the current focus is really around emphasizing on the equipments, on technology, on process efficiency, and on the economics of energy utilization as an example, long-term sustenance really requires each and every employee in the organization to come together. They need to be triangulated through focused communication, promotion of sustainable consumption, and blending daily health and wellness. And our assessment is that these measures, which fundamentally are nothing more than no investment to low investment measures, actually can reduce and sustain a baseline consumption of anywhere from 7 to 15% without even making capital expenditures. So that's a few of the thoughts that we have as a company. We have actually, implemented, I would say, several, such programs with many of our customers. I'm happy to report that it's actually resulted in about an abatement of 27,000 tons of carbon across many of our customers, which we are now measuring and validating. And I would truly encourage everyone to really, become a sustainability evangelist and really help corporates get future ready and really take on what I think is the biggest, I would say, the next pandemic, as we sort of call it.